Welcome back. Some of you guys are familiar with a tree called Moringa. Moringa oleifera, which is one of the world's most beloved medicinal trees. It is a really good nutrient accumulator. It has complete protein in it. It is good for animals. It is good for people. You can make tea out of it. You can add it to your food. And it makes an edible fruit if you're in the right climate, though I've never been in the right climate to do much with them. Well, the problem with Moringa is that it is a true tropical tree. If it touches 32 degrees, the thing melts. Now, people are growing it into zones 8 and 9, and often what they do is they let the Moringa tree freeze down to the ground, and then they hope that it grows back from the roots beneath the ground the next year. Some people who are a little more ambitious will mulch over the top of it, chop it down and mulch over it, but I am even more ambitious than that. And some years ago, I figured out a method for preserving Moringa trees through frosts, and it worked great on the border of zone 8/9, and we're gonna try it here again in zone 8, and I am absolutely convinced that it will work because I have a friend, and her Moringa trees came back from the roots, and I know that if hers came back from the roots with a bit of mulch, mine are definitely gonna come back if I practice this method, and they're gonna be way more vigorous than if I just let them freeze to the ground.
In a world of pain and sadness and endless misery, the only thing that keeps me going is you and me. Oh, you'd better see things my way. You'd better come around or I'll put you in the ground.
This Moringa tree was grown from seed, planted in the spring, and it is 9 feet tall, I would say. So we're gonna have to cut it down to size. It's good stuff. Now we have our trunk. We're just going to stick a little ring of wire around it and stuff it. That's it. That's all you have to do. This right here is providing enough insulation to keep that trunk from freezing. Now, if I was really worried that it was gonna get super cold, I could mulch the ground around this too, but that's not necessary for a zone 8/9 winter. It doesn't get that cold for that long that it's gonna really damage it. Now, if you're in an area that has wet winters, I would take beyond this, I would put something over the top to keep water from running through on the inside and making it a sopping mess. This is particularly a problem if you use straw because it can get clumpy and wet around the trunk. The tree is a tropical tree. It's not really capable of growing when it gets cold, so it'll just sit there and rot, and it's not able to grow out of it or keep itself from dying. I've had this happen before. So I cover it if it's gonna be really wet. Winter, I just put something over the top of it. I could put like a big barrel over it if I wanted to, or a tarp, trash bag, it doesn't matter. This right here is good. Now, if you were in a colder climate, you might be able to keep them alive, say in zone 7. I bet you could. And in that kind of a climate, I would just make the ring bigger. Make it a bigger ring, stuff in a bunch of fall leaves, cover the whole thing really well. Now you've got all that airspace in there, and it's probably gonna live. The reason I like to do it this way will be explained as I'm doing the next one. Now I can hear you asking, right through the screen, why? Why protect the trunk instead of just letting it freeze down and come back? Well, I found through my experiments growing Moringa in non-tropical climates that if you protect the trunk, this nice fleshy area here, there's a lot more life and sap in the tree when it comes to the next season. They grow more vigorously, they grow faster, they produce you leaves much quicker if you can protect the trunk. If it freezes all the way down to the roots, it regrows these little weak stems, and then they have to thicken up and grow before they really give you a good yield. But the more the trunk you can protect, the stronger it comes out later. So I've taken to protecting the trunks unless I have a lot of trees. And of course, if you're a little loosey-goosey like this, you can stick some little tent pegs or something in there to hold it. If I have bigger rings, they sit really easy. That one had little bits of wire on the bottom, so it stuck very nicely, but you can pin it down with something. They'll help keep it from falling away. There we go. For those of you who are going to ask, what are you going to do with all this? All this Moringa that you just pulled off. That stuff's crazy expensive. Well, we're gonna dry it and we'll keep it in the house. Now, I've written a lot on this tree. I have written about it in Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening. I've written about it in Florida Survival Gardening. I've written about it on my blog. I probably wrote about it in Grow or Die. I don't even remember anymore. But this tree is super useful if you are in zone probably 6 and north. It's going to be hard to keep it alive because your ground freezes too, and that is tough. So in that case, I would grow it as an annual. You saw how tall that thing was? 1 year's growth. And it wasn't even in a particularly good spot. It had too much shade, it had terrible soil. You can easily get them to 10 or 20 feet in the first year, unless you have a short growing season without a lot of warmth. It likes it warm, it likes it hot. So if you have hot and humid, like Middle Tennessee or whatever, no problem. You'll do just fine growing Moringa from seed. You're just gonna treat it like an annual, unless you want to put a great big ring around it and see if you can keep it alive through winter outside. Alternately, if you live in a cooler climate, you can put it in a pot, bring it into the house, in and out, cut it down short so it doesn't get really tall and leggy inside the house, because they always get leggy. And if you cut it down short, you'll be able to move it in and out. It's just, kind of gets ridiculous moving a 15-foot tall tree. Don't do that, just chop it, you won't kill it. The other option is to stick it in a greenhouse, and that kind of gets expensive. So further north, I would grow it as an annual or put it in a pot. If you're probably zone 7, I would try to do a really big ring and keep it alive, or maybe put it in a pot. Zone 8 and south through zone 9, in that case, you probably want to protect it in the winter. If you protect the trunks, again, you get much better growth, much better regrowth than if you let it freeze all the way to the ground and lose all that trunk and the sap that's inside of there and all those growth buds. But if you are in zone 10, 11, totally tropical, you can grow this tree year round. The occasional frost isn't going to hurt it. If you're in zone 10, like it's going to freeze like once every 10 years, you know, it's not a big deal. You probably is just going to shrug it off, lose a few leaves. But zone 11, 12, then you start getting into a all year round survival forage crop, regular vegetable, chop and drop and all that kind of thing. It's so easy to grow in that climate. And I always start them from seeds instead of cuttings. I found that cuttings are just kind of weak and they don't do great compared to one started from seed. The only time I would consider it is if I had a bunch of trees that I wanted to stick around the edge of maybe a sheep or a goat enclosure or something, and just wanted to ram a bunch in, or make a hedge structure or something like that, just cram them in the ground like I used to do with Gliricidia sepium. Say that 3 times fast. But otherwise, from seed, it's just great. And even if you grow it as an annual, you get a pretty good yield. Seeds aren't that expensive. So, you know, try it. It's medicinal. It's easy to grow, and when you cook it, it loses its weirdly horseradishy flavor, and it's pretty darn good. So you can learn more about how to keep things alive through winter in my book, Push the Zone, and that is the good guide to growing tropical plants beyond the tropics. I talk about how you can push the zone, whatever your climate is, how you can just get a little bit more out of it. So if you're in Central Florida, yeah, here's how you can grow coffee outside. If you are up in Canada, here's how you could push peaches to grow outside. Things like that. It's basically, how can you bump up a zone or two without getting super complicated? So Push the Zone, the good guide to growing tropical plants beyond the tropics. I'll put a link below. And if you're in Florida or Gulf Coast or whatever and you want to learn more about growing moringa, check out my other links, and my Florida gardening books will be helpful to those of you in Florida and maybe a little bit beyond. Catch you all next time. And until then, may your thumbs always be green. Do you throw banana peels in the trash? Are your coffee grounds also being thrown in the trash? Do you compost ham? Are you sick and tired of all the rules about composting? Do you wish you could compost in a super easy way? And stop throwing things in a landfill? And stop being a terrible person? Click on the link below and sign up and get my new composting booklet, which shows you how to compost easily and simply with hardly any work at all. It's insane how easy it is because it follows natural principles. Sign up now. Quantities are not limited.